Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create freedom in their life through success in tech sales and the pursuit of personal growth. And one thing I love to do in the channel is have awesome people join me for great conversations on how to break into tech sales. For example, Zach Watson, who we have today, was a teacher and he's a TikToker, which is pretty cool. And that's a whole different story. And he broke into the industry and he's doing great. And so we're going to learn from him about, what attracted him to tech sales, why he was interested, how he got in, what's it like, and where is he trying to take it. So hopefully this illuminates for you all who want to get into tech sales, what the opportunity is really like and how you can possibly break in. And man, it can make a huge difference in your life. It's an amazing career. So without further ado, let's dive into it. And I forgot to say, of course, subscribe, by the way, if you get value out of this video. And if you're looking for weekly sales and personal growth hacks that you can chew on like snacks. But anyways, that little spiel is done. Let's do it, Zach. Thanks for joining me. How was your weekend? How's your morning going?
I'll say it's been a little slower. The weekend was good. We had a birthday, and I'm currently working on installing some stair railings, which I feel like I'm slowly becoming a Zach of all trades when it comes to like carpentry and like DIY projects at our house. But for the day as a sales rep, I think hit a couple of the typical like mental blocks. I have, so my job as a sales development representative, I feel like it's more of a business development representative. I'm not sure the difference that people have, but my job is to book meetings. So I'm cold calling people most of my day. I try to be making 120 to 180 cold calls a day.
Wow.
The amount that is our like basic standard of calls is 60 a day. Like if we're not hitting that, then we're in trouble. But I realized last month when I was making quite a few more, like double or even triple our expectation, that I was hitting my numbers a lot easier. So I booked a meeting this morning. One of the meetings I had previously scheduled did not show up. We're currently going through a little bit of a technology integration transformation. So we're switching over to Salesforce for our CRM. For people that aren't in tech sales, this was jargon to me just a couple months ago. CRM is customer relationship management. So just getting used to using Salesforce and getting used to like all of the documentation you sort of create as you're calling prospects and documenting your activity and speaking with them and stuff. So it's been a little slow. I'm a little behind on my dials today, but I have no concern. I should be able to rebound after this call today.
Yeah, well, you already set one meeting, which is great. And the no-shows are classic. It happens. It's a part of the game. I remember that would happen to me quite a bit. I was a little disappointed, but on to the next one, as Jay-Z says. And so you need to make 60 calls. You make 120 typically because you saw that work. Do you believe in the law of averages when it comes to this job and just like?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I haven't figured out what my averages are. I think for meetings booked to like actual people showing up is about 70%. So I gotta book probably about 130, 140% of my meetings to make my monthly quota. Last month I hit my quota. So our goal is to hit seven meetings where the person shows up and sort of speaks with you and knows why they're there. And for 6 of those to be qualified so that they have some pain, that they recognize some value in the project and are interested in moving to a next step. And that turns into a sales qualified opportunity. So our goal is 8 and 6. Last month I was at 9 and 8. It was a good month for me. The previous month I was at 6 and 6. Was the first time I didn't hit my quota since March. And we also have a ramping stage of 3 months where we're not expected to hit our full quota for the first 3 months. It's not until the 4th month. So yeah, last month I was like, man, not hitting quota, for me, it wasn't any danger for my job. It was mostly just I don't get paid as much. But I think that like feeling of not hitting it sucks. And you're like, I can absolutely be making more activities to make this happen, and I'm willing to. So I'm actually, I feel like you'll appreciate this, especially with our landmark training. Is we started a dial high club to play off the mile high club phrase, and so we set at the beginning of July when I was like, okay, I need to call more people. I said to one of my colleagues, so we meet 8 a.m. every morning to like just huddle on Zoom, and then we get off to our call blitz. And I said, hey, I really want to hit 100 phone calls today. I'm asking for someone to hold me financially accountable for this. So if I make 100 calls, then I owe $0. But if I make 90 calls, I owe you $10. If I make 99 calls, I owe you $1, and I have till 5:30 p.m. to make this happen.
Wow.
And it worked. I didn't owe them any money. And then I did it again the next day, but for 120 calls, and again, haven't paid any money. And so I did that for a couple more days until I kind of had the hang of like getting up to that number, because 60 used to be a grind, but now like 180 is a grind, and 60 like I can get done in the first like hour or two. Because you just get lost in all those other things of sending emails and making
Okay.
sure the email is perfect, and
Yes. Yeah.
prospecting a few other people when you know that you already have like 1,000 people you can be calling at that moment. Um, so yeah, I think the moment that I started holding myself financially accountable was a huge shift in my brain. And so this month we decided, instead of doing it day to day, is we said I want to have an average of 180 calls a day. So by the end of the month, it comes out to like 3,960 total calls. So at the end of the month is when we're going to hold each other financially accountable. So if I'm off by 100 dials, I owe $100 to the other people in the team. So, but the good and bad aspect of this, if let's say no one hits their dial quota, it's just whoever owes way more than the others will owe the money. So I'm about 100 behind on that. After this first week, I made 800 of the 900 calls that I said I would make. So I got some catching up to do this week.
What a great nugget is to keep yourself financially accountable and have a potential penalty if you don't do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great pro tip. Do you have any other pro tips when it comes to being successful in sales and in the BDR role? For example, I know you're an amazing goal setter. Maybe it's that, or what are some other tools that you use to be effective in this job?
Hey, it's interesting. So for a little while, so that month that I hit 6 and 6, which means that, so
Yeah,
the
what does that mean
expectation,
again? Is like you got
yeah.
six opportunities.
So 6 accepted leads, which is like they showed up to the meeting, and then the opportunities mean like, okay, yeah, we're interested in a demo in your product. We want to learn more. They want to go to some other next step. Um, Usually, like, so that's 100% telequalified leads over to sales opportunities, which means that I was doing a good job on the phone, making sure that they had pain, that that was an issue that they wanted to really dig into, and they're interested in finding solutions for. And it was told to me like sometimes getting them to the table can be a little bit more valuable than you think. So they said, "Y- we expect at least 2 of those meetings to not be full opportunities. So you might be overqualifying just a little bit." So what I started realizing was sometimes at the end of a phone call, we might get to, 10 minutes with a stranger, and I say, I don't hear any major challenges that you're working on. And what I would love, and what I was doing back then was, I would say, I don't even see any point for us meeting, but maybe I'll call you in a couple months and see, if there are any challenges you guys are working on. And so I would say no for them. And it was it was a couple of my colleagues said to me, you can always let them say no to you, because what you could say is like, I'd be interested in having you see a meeting just to see what's out there, You might not be looking for any tools at the moment, but maybe when you see the product, you'll see some issues that you are, in fact, looking for solutions to that you didn't realize it was valuable for. Um, and so once I just, as they say, shooting your shot, like I started counting. Once I realized I was overqualifying things or like I was under quota, I started just tallying in a journal for the first couple of days that I was trying this out, how many times I shot my shot. So I realized at first it was probably like 1 or 2 tries a day, but then I was trying like 6 or 10 times a day. Just getting to the end of a short conversation, 3, 4, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and inviting them to look more at the product, even if I didn't see any specific pain. Now, our VP of sales doesn't love that, but at the same time, we do know that sometimes we're gonna have a meeting where just by showing up to the meeting, like good things can happen.
Yes.
Um, and it, immediate pain isn't always necessary. It often is, but not
Yeah.
100% of the time. So
That's a good insight that sometimes we can rule the opportunity out, like sabotage ourselves. At least that's how I'm interpreting it
yeah,
in a way like, oh, I don't saying no for them. I doesn't sound like you have a pain. Or you know what I would do is I have a big proposal for X $100,000, like on a project or something. And now I'm in the professional services side that, I used to sell the software. Now we're selling the services to implement the software. So now we have these big projects, and I'd like to admit like, oh, it's probably gonna be too expensive, or like things you just,
mm,
it's easy to, do those like sabotaging behaviors. But I love what you're doing, which is shooting the shot. It's a great
yeah,
expression. Channeling your inner Wayne Gretzky, which we all need to do. And
yeah,
meeting, because unpredictable things can happen. And there are opportunities to teach the customer about a problem they didn't know they had too. That's the one thing. And I don't know, have you read the Challenger sale or heard of that book?
I'm not.
It's a really good one to check out sometime. It's the basis for the Google Cloud methodology. The guy who wrote it, or one of the co-authors, Matt Dixon, is like a sales researcher, and he was a part of CEB, which they're like an analyst, and they're acquired by Gartner, and they look at like all this sales data, and basically this Challenger was the number one performing persona they created based on all this sales data, biggest study ever. The Challenger, the relationship seller, the problem solver, the hard worker. And it's funny, the relationship person, which I tend to be, performed the worst overall.
Really?
Challenger, who could create constructive tension, hold the silence, and teach, tailor, and take control to like teach the customer about something they didn't know was a problem. They were the most successful. So long story short, there's an opportunity to do that too. And that can be challenging, pun intended. But have you ever thought about that, or have you thought about
Yeah.
how to do that in your role?
So I think if I'm understanding what you're saying right, so one of my colleagues that I've really looked up to the past like 4 months, because he's been our top performer. He was the one making 165 calls every
Wow.
day, like you could count on it like clockwork. And one of the really interesting things that sounds like that challenger persona that you're describing, which it sounds like he was probably one of those, is he was really great at holding the silence, right? Like if he asked a question
Mm.
and they didn't answer for the first 3 seconds, he didn't jump in and like try to like be like, no, I'll ask a different question. Like he would just hold it.
Yes.
Um, and one of the things he was good at was at some point when they would describe a little bit of pain that our software is capable of handling, which by the way, our software, the main thing is that we control, um, help see, connect, control complex projects. So if you're doing things in Google Sheets, if you're doing things on paper, uh, like if you were trying to create a Google form to put input data and then put it in, that's something that we would typically replace, especially if you're dealing with more complex versions of that. He would say things like, "Excuse me, sir, like could I make a suggestion? Is what you're talking about right there sounds really challenging. And I think that, our company QuickBase can make a difference. Like, I'm
Wow.
looking at my calendar right here. I would like to continue this conversation, Tuesday at 7. Does that work for you? Tuesday at 7 is absurd. Uh, but like,
Yeah.
um,
4 p.m.
but like, I think that moment when he would pause and say, "Can I make a suggestion?" That occurs to me, like the challenger persona you're talking about. And I think a really wonderful example of the first time I was like, "Whoa, this guy," was I was sitting next to him. So we're a hybrid. We're in office 2 days a week, but at home 3 days a week. I was sitting diagonally from him, and he was on the phone with somebody, and we use Outreach as the app that we like call people. And I was listening into him, and the guy says, if you don't mind, I'm actually just gonna hang up on you now. He's like, Actually, I would mind." And I was like, wow, that was my first like two
Oh, he
weeks or
said that's
something.
customer. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy said, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just gonna hang up now. He's like, yeah, actually, I would mind. And he kept him on the phone for another 3 minutes or so after that. And
Did
so
the guy
being
hang up
able to, he
eventually?
did eventually, I think, but like the that like initial ability to have a little bit of that confrontiveness, there's a better word for it, but like slightly confrontational way of
Oh,
speaking that
provocative.
challenges it. Yeah, it's like it's challenging to be there, but like be firm but not aggressive, but like, I don't know, be in a way that, you are. It's almost like when someone says, "Yeah, like I don't talk to my sibling. Like, we haven't talked for 5 years." And he said, like, "Yeah, that's like an issue." And they're like, "No, no, it's fine." Like, no, that's an issue. Like, to be able to say, hear something that you see as an issue in your heart, and then be able to say to them, like, "Yeah, that is an issue. Like, that can be better." Like, is challenging their status quo, which it sounds like is sort of what you were saying there.
Yeah, you get it. And so it's an important thing for us to take on, especially when we're selling technology. And sometimes technology is a little bit like fog sculpting, is the way that someone described it, because it can be abstract. And it's on a seller like you
Mhm.
or me to really simplify the value and teach and challenge. And I think you hit on a good thing in life in general. If we know something in our heart and believe something, and we're committed to the well-being and success of someone else, and we think like we really believe we can help that person, then you're going to stand up for it and be persistent. And so part of that is believing the product, and I know you're just learning about the product you're selling, and
Mm.
I haven't had the chance to do a whole lot of research, but don't you think having some degree of belief, I mean, you have to believe in the product,
Yeah.
and have some degree of passion. And have you found that in your experience that it helps or?
Um, I think it's definitely gotten easier over the past couple months because I don't, QuickBase, I don't understand fully what it does or like the problems that it solves, but I think slowly over time, talking with people that have used it, hearing customers like rave about it,
Cool.
like I think you slowly start to believe what it's capable of. I know one of the things we had wanted to talk about today was that part of the reason that I switched over to sales was because I have a side hustle of being a goals and accountability coach, and I'm not that great at selling myself. And so, like, having belief in my own product of my goal setting workshops and my holding people accountable, like, I'm working on believing in myself for that and believing in the product. So I think slowly hearing all the positive stories about QuickBase has definitely made it easier for me to say in those conversations, hey, like, I would love to have a conversation to discover this with you and see if there's a fit here. And I'm starting to realize like I need a little bit of that, even just to have these sort of discovery calls, to sort of start talking to people. And a fun fact is like, I think I might actually be pivoting some of um, my side hustle. I've been teaming up with one of my colleagues, Stanley. We did a goal setting workshop actually this Saturday morning, and we had a small turnout, which was there's a part of it's disappointing, but I think we quickly swung the way that we're looking at it as like a learning opportunity, and we're realizing that B2B might be a better model instead of B2C for us. So I've been thinking, now that I make so many cold calls a day to, directors and different people, if I started making cold calls to businesses saying like, have you done a goal setting workshop with your sales reps yet? Like, what kind of difference would that make? And I'm starting to think about selling myself to like sales organization or groups and teams. So
Wow.
I think I'm starting to see the value in just like what I'm getting good at as a sales rep and how that could eventually sort of evolve into my side hustle here.
Man, such a good synergy. The thing about getting into tech sales, and it's the same for me, is that whatever you want to do in your life, what your dreams are, to be an entrepreneur who does goal setting workshops and then becomes a thought leader for that space, or me with this YouTube channel and wanting to speak and do things, or starting a nonprofit, getting into tech sales and sales in general, right? But I love tech sales, will serve you towards any of those ends, because you're just developing skills like mindsets and negotiation skills and the ability to cold call that you will take with you and that will serve you, and I say this a million times, like people are probably annoyed who have heard a lot of these interviews and with different people, but it's not a best writing author, it's a best selling author. So
Mm.
sales is such an important skill, because you could write the most beautiful book that could impact so many people, but if it's not sold and marketed effectively, the pages might never be opened. And that's
Yeah, I remember hearing Robert Kiyosaki talk about that
that's
when
where
he
I got
was
it from.
coming up with the title from his book, right? It was like, if he had titled his book like, I don't know, like mindset for real estate entrepreneurs, like probably no one would have bought it besides him and his family. But the reason it's best selling is because he had a really great cover to it, title.
That's exactly what I was referencing to. I got it from Rob, and he said some of the greatest skills you could ever build for like wealth building and creating an amazing life are sales and then copywriting. And of course, you get that in sales too. Writing a great email is like a form of sales copy. The art of writing communications that get people to click or take the meeting. But I was going to ask you, by the way, I've really enjoyed digging into the reality of the role. You've done a great job of illustrating it.
Thank you.
How long does it take you to make all these calls? I've actually never made that many calls, and I probably would have done even better if I did. And so how do you pull that off in one day? And how many people are just realistically, like, do you have wrong numbers or pickups? Like, what's it
That's a
like?
great question. So it's probably a little bit different for each industry. So I'm specifically SLED, so state local education. So I'm calling universities. I'm calling I think my favorite person. Like, if I see this title, like I get excited because of what we're capable of. If I see like a real estate management deputy director of Department of Transportation, something like that. I call a lot of people in the Department of Transportation because we work really well with a lot of project managers, especially in the construction space, is sort of our niche. So getting accurate phone numbers for people in government is tough. Uh, we mostly use the Zoom info tool, which pulls phone numbers. I don't know where they come from. They from to me it feels like they come out of thin air, but they pull phone numbers, and it's usually I'm looking at titles on LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Nav. I didn't even know that existed until this job.
And that's a great tool, but LinkedIn is so good, especially Sales Navigator.
Yeah, it's good, but a lot of people in government don't like update their profiles.
Oh, so maybe it's more for like, I've been in the private sector mostly, so maybe
Yeah, it's
better for
super
that.
useful for like
Yeah.
enterprise and commercial sales, but it's been a little bit more challenging finding those numbers. So let's see, if I were to give you percentages, I would say, so my PR, my personal record for most dials in a day was 300. that was so at the end of July, my friend Frank, I'd love for you to, I made the introduction to him with you the other day. He has a TikTok about pretty much our job, and I I was ahead of him by like 200 or 300 dials. Now he calls people at like really large companies. So for some reason, they just don't pick up. And when they do, they barely talk to him versus like, I feel like I similarly don't get a lot of people to pick up, but I don't know if it's that I'm better at getting people to talk to me or people in government just don't mind talking as much. I don't know what it is, but we were I said to him, I'm going to finish the end of the month with more dials than you. He's like, 200 lead. Like, I still got 4 days to beat you. Like, I'm not worried. So Monday we were like neck and neck. And then Tuesday I was like, I'm going to put this guy in his coffin. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm ending this 3 days early. So I went out and did 300 calls. And I think he made it to like just over 100. And he's like, okay, you win.
Good for
But
you. So you're competitive, aren't you, too? It's like, because
yeah.
I was like, one thing it's important to help people understand is like, how do you know if tech sales or sales is for you? And clearly you seem to have certain qualities and a drive that where you could thrive, and hopefully you're enjoying the role at
Mm,
least to some degree. I know it's not all roses. Like we get rejected. You deal with like
yeah.
updating and logging things in Salesforce. That's not fun. But do you think like, are you pretty competitive, and like what makes you be good at this role and enjoy it?
Yeah, I think competitiveness is definitely helpful. Like I was sort of surprised. So, I came from being a teacher for the past 8 years, and before
Yeah.
that, I was a software developer for 2 years, and I was an engineering degree in college. So, definitely a very different environment. I think the one really surprising thing that both excited me and was like confronting that it existed was we can look at the stats of all of the SDRs around us. So I can see how many meetings the guy next to me booked. I can see how many I could, if I wanted to, I could figure out his commission check. Like I can check out all the call
Wow.
stats, all of their last month stats. Like I was like, we can see all this. Like it's not just me looking at myself. Like I couldn't believe that it's like going to school and being able to see everyone else's grades.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and it was like it was both frightening and like exciting at the same time. Um, so I think the competitive side of me definitely loves that, and there's definitely days where it's like, it'll we usually stop calling right around 5. Every once in a while, if I'm trying to hit a dial goal, I'll go to 6 because I have people I can call in Central Time. So sometimes it'd be like, oh, that guy's got like 14 more dials than me. Like I could crank out 15 more. I got 20 minutes. Like, and sometimes you'll do that just out of like straight pride, I want to say. And the
It's fun.
coolest moment I think I've had has been I've actually I've actually booked a meeting out of that competitiveness and wanting to like just finish out the day ahead of someone else. And I think I've had 1 or 2 days before where it's like I either promised myself a number or I just really wanted to edge out someone else for the day in a vanity metric of dials. Um, I feel like dials, like if you were to compare to like football is like pass yards, but meetings booked is like touchdowns.
Exactly.
So it's like if you make a lot of dials, you make a lot of passing yards, it looks pretty good, but who cares if you don't put in the touchdowns? Um, so I forget where I was going with that.
Yeah, that was
But
a good.
competitiveness is good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good metaphor, and I like that you speaking of being competitive tied into football. Um, so yeah, you want to drive for the touchdowns. The quality meetings, and that quality over quantity is a universal principle, right? But the vanity metrics can help, because you
Mm.
add in a few more dials, and through the law of averages, you're probably going to find a few more opportunities. But we're talking a lot about dials. I'm curious, how much are you using your friend the email? Is that something you use, or are you just really smiling and dialing the whole time?
Mostly smiling and dialing. I think that might be industry specific. I know that a lot of government people that I'm calling, they get a lot of solicitation. So getting someone on the phone like is 10 times more useful to me. I think I've booked one meeting out of email, maybe two,
Really?
since I started, and I think I've booked 40, 50 meetings by now, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So a really, really low percent. And it was like it was really lucky too. Like I cold called this lady. I said, "Hey, is this person in here?" Like, "Oh, I think you actually have the wrong number." I was like, "Wait, but am I still calling the city of Milwaukee?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Sorry, who am I speaking with?" And she's like, "This is so and so." And I said, "Yeah, I'm calling on behalf of QuickBase. Do you mind if I just give my 20-second pitch what we do?" And she's like, "Sure." And I shot the shot, and she said, "Wait, really? Yeah, we're working on building something like that. Hey, what's your phone number? I'm gonna call you back, Zach." She didn't end up calling me back, but I said, "Hey, if I don't hear from you, like, when should I follow up?" And she said, "Follow up with me by here. Do me a favor, also send me an email just so I know who to contact." And she sent me the meeting via email. She said, "Yeah, we're looking for a product that does X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. Can you do that? And this is the date we would really like to have a demo for this." And I was like, "Oh, oh, you're just gonna come to me like that?" So I've only had one. That I think that's the only email it's ever turned into a meeting, but that was like
And it started with a
that was a
call.
unicorn. Yeah.
And it started with a call. So that's awesome. Yeah, there's something to be said for talking to people that can get you to the right people, and you didn't even realize who that person was. But
Yeah.
just in general, it's a good strategy. Like if you can't get a hold of the key decision maker, because we usually know who that key persona is, someone at the periphery that still has some influence in the company who you could at least give the pitch to,
Mm.
like, hey, like I'm not sure if you're the right person, but do you mind if I just shared a little bit how we help similar companies? Sure, boom. And it sparks an idea, and they're like, you know what, I should connect you. And then it's warm, it's like an
Mm.
internal referral. Nice work, man. That was a great example. And it just highlights again why you always have to shoot your shot. And I like that you didn't give in to the temptation that I might have had, which is like, oh, sorry to bother you. Have a good day. You
And
like,
hey, and I won't say that I do that 100% of the time, because there are days when I just want to I'm not feeling phone calls, and I will just be like, "Oh, sorry to bother you, my bad." And so that I'd say it's like,
fighting our
uh,
nature, basically. It's a
yeah,
great job to do that, to push through,
I'd
to
say
drive
maybe 60% of the time, maybe, probably 60, 50% of the time, I'm actually pushing through and trying to get a little bit more information if I have the wrong person. Usually I will try to see if I'm calling an organization that I'm just in the wrong department or the wrong person in the right department. Um, because I can't always tell if it's a mobile or like an office phone number. So, but sometimes, like, especially if the person is clearly in a mood, then I don't bother.
Yeah. So, speaking of back to the topic of why tech sales, it seems clear that you have an entrepreneurial mindset. You have a coaching business. And I've worked with you, by the way, and I got a lot out of it. You have an amazing approach to goals and particularly accountability, which is missing for a lot of us. That's
Mm.
because we can set the goals, but it's hard to hold ourselves accountable. So, I think it's great stuff. And by the way, as I continue on this tangent, it's a great idea to go to the corporate space. Let's be real, they have the funds too. So I think
Yeah.
you were on to something. And basically you're saying you wanted to learn to become a better seller, even for that business. And you're going to be able to use your cold calling skills now to reach out to companies and sell yourself, and boom,
Mm.
crush it. Or were there any other reasons why? I mean, that's an incredible reason in and of itself, but any other things that attracted you to tech sales?
So, I'll be fully honest here. Is back last August. So we have a child, and she's about to turn 1, and I was on paternity leave for 4 months. And when I went back to teaching, I didn't want to be there. Like, I more so than I didn't want to work, it was like I didn't want to physically be there. I wanted to be at home helping and
Uh,
or being with her. And so I wanted a remote job. I thought to myself, I don't know what teaching gigs there are that are remote. And so there was also a big part of me that last year I really tried to ramp up my activities for making my coaching business happen. It didn't quite work out, but I think I was so excited about wanting to build that. So I think, I've hosted quite a few workshops now. I've had a good amount of clients now, and I can see a lot more value in it, in the service that it provides for people. So knowing that I wanted to build that, I was like, okay, similar to, Robert Kiyosaki, don't do a job for money, do a job to learn. So I asked myself,
Mm.
what skills do I need next? And I considered marketing jobs because I thought marketing was something I similarly not great at. Um, I feel like I'm okay at getting eyeballs on me with TikTok and stuff, but not necessarily possible buyers or anything. So I knew I wanted sales skills or marketing skills. I knew I wanted to be at home. Tech sales wasn't necessarily, I, I figured tech sales had remote jobs. I think I applied to a bunch of different sales positions. Um, I knew it was going to be entry level. I knew I was interested in earning more money. So that's why I sort of leaned closer towards sales than marketing. Um, and I had a conversation with you last year about like your experience with sales, and you're like, yeah, tech sales is a great place to be. So I think a lot of the companies that I applied for were actually like education services that I'd used before as a teacher, and could speak to their value as a
Oh,
former
wow.
teacher. No one called me back. Actually, this company, QuickBase, was the only one that actually called me back. There were two other companies that were selling insurance, and I was like, I don't think I want to sell insurance.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very smart strategy, though, by the way. I'm surprised, like, is being a teacher that used the product, that's very
Yeah.
valuable. Like, you believe in it, you have empathy, you can sell it well. So they're missing out. But, anyways, I'm glad it worked out with where you're at now. And what was your process to land the job? And did you proactively reach out to them and like call them up or something, or network on LinkedIn? And yeah, so how do you get in? And then what was the interview process like?
So I think I did a pretty traditional route. I went on LinkedIn, I went on Indeed, and my plan was, so it was like January, I started taking I was a teacher for another month, and I was like, I didn't love it, but I was like, okay, I can hang in here. And then I think through talking with my partner, we decided we wanted to make the change. So January, I started hitting it hard. And I said, okay, on weekdays, I'm going to put in 3 applications every day, with an aim for 15 applications a week. So that's about 60 applications a month. I didn't hit that number. I ended up putting out probably 30, maybe 40 applications in like a month and a half. Um, but like I said, they're pretty traditional. They're just the applications online. I would say if you want to break into tech sales, if you already know how to cold call people, or if you can find contact information, you can cold call potential people to hire you, I think they would love that. I'm pretty certain any single one of my managers, if they got a cold call saying, hey, I saw on LinkedIn that you're the team lead for the sled team at QuickBase. Are you guys looking for any new SDRs? Like,
That's
seeing someone literally do the job that they're applying for as by cold calling their potential employer, like
oh,
that'd be game over. Like, that's hire on
that,
the spot. Yeah,
that's
when can you come in?
that's a nugget right there, man. So for anyone else out there watching, if you can do that, it's what we call pattern interrupt. You can't be perceived as better if you're not perceived as different, and that's different. I don't think a lot of people have the courage to do that.
Yeah, I
It's
think
risky, but
if
man,
I were going after another job for some reason, which I'm not searching right now, that's how I would go about it. Is I
yeah,
would cold call people, because it's like someone that wants it that bad, that's not going through the typical application process and is going to cut straight through to having a conversation with you, like getting a on the phone interview immediately, like I I would take that person very seriously.
Yeah. Wow. I want to take this as a little clip and put it out on into the world. People need to see that. So, what was your interview process like? Like, how many interviews did you have? What were the types of interviews or questions that you got? Give us a little look under the hood.
Let's see. So they first emailed me back saying, "Hey, do you have time for like a first interview?" It was a phone call. Um, they just got some real like surface level stuff, sort of clarified some of the things I said on my resume. And they did like a sort of like an initial screening, like, yes, this guy sounds all right. Showed up on time. Um, I don't know, said some of the right things at least. And then they said, okay, would like to schedule a second interview with you. Second one was with my current manager now, Bobby. It was a Zoom interview. Um, I'm trying to remember, he spoke with me, sort of basic stuff. Some of the main questions he said, how do you deal with rejection? And I said, I get cussed out by teenagers every day as a teenager. I mean, as a teacher. So I don't know. I just keep showing up. That's all you do as a teacher. So I guess similar to what you do in sales, you just keep dialing the phone. Um, and speaking of that, by the way, if you are in a job that you get cussed out, like in terms of like the cussing out I've received on phone calls, like I've been like teenagers are like 100 or 1,000 times worse than cold calls. Like in one day, in the past 8 years that I've worked, there was only one job where like the kids were like light and easy. Like someone said "fuck you" to me once at one of the jobs, and they're like, "Whoa, that's crazy." Versus every other job I worked, like it was like you're getting told "f you" at least 20 times a day. Um,
Wow.
was like pretty predictable. So I don't even think anyone's sworn at me quite like that. The worst I've gotten on a phone call at cold calling is "you're so stupid," and then click the phone on me. But I was like, "That's all you got."
What the
Um,
heck?
but all right. So coming back to your question though, so the
That's so
process.
funny.
So he asked a little bit, how do you deal with rejection? I, he did a mock call. He gave me a LinkedIn persona. So they sent me like some random person on LinkedIn, said, "Hey, your job is you're going to be cold calling this person. We're going to do a mock call." Um, Now, given I don't really know a whole lot about, I didn't know much about the company I was even going to be selling for. So, um, my goal is just to learn a little bit about their responsibilities and find out what kind of challenges they deal with, and I guess I don't even remember what my assignment was. I think it wasn't necessarily to book a meeting, but like to just have a phone conversation, learn a bit about their position. But I'd say, I imagine what I do is probably pretty similar to what a lot of other tech companies are going to be like. Is I'm trying to find out, what does this person do? What's their day to day look like? What systems are they using if you're selling software? Um, what kind of pain points are they experiencing, and or what would they like to see if those were improved? So for us, we typically augment things. We don't really replace things, which is much easier to book meetings, because like we're not going to replace our system, but we can look for ways to augment. So you would want to find out, if you can, a little bit more about the product for how that conversation would go. That didn't seem to, my poor ability to do that did not impact my interview, I don't think. um, but I think one thing that I recall he said he was pretty impressed with was my self-reflection. So it's at one or two points he had like opted to like hang up the phone on me. And I think one of them, I kept him on the phone for a little bit longer. The second one, I just said, "Okay, okay," and then they hung up. And in the self-reflection at the end, he had said, all right, what did you like about that? What would you have improved if you could do that again? And he was pretty impressed with my like self-analysis of how the call went. So like, yeah, I think I did this good. I think I did this good. This part, I like paused and was like deer in the headlights. And then this other part, like, I think I could have powered through and asked this other question. And so I think he was pretty impressed with my self-analysis, which I I don't think got me the third interview, but it definitely helped a case for my third interview was my self-analysis. Because I think what they're looking for is one, people that are not afraid to call people, and two, someone that can learn from coaching.
Yes.
Because there, I've heard other people in my colleagues that are still doing the same things that they were doing in week one or week three, and I'm like, we've done call coaching before. Why are you still doing this? And I think to myself, I don't know if this person's uncoachable or if they're like so set in their ways that they're not evolving. But like, I feel like if you listen to my calls this month compared to last month, they sound different. So I think being able to self analyze, make adjustments, and get better is definitely what they're looking for. Um, the SDR role is a short term role. They expect that you're not going to be there for more than a year or two. Um, One of my managers told me that half their role is getting us to book good meetings, and the other half of the role is training us to become account executives, to be the person that we're booking the meetings for.
Yes.
And coming back to your questions, that was the second interview. Third interview was a panel. It was VP of sales, and it was 4 or 5 of the other team managers. This was in March. So they're all there. They didn't do a mock call, but they did do a training exercise where the guy steps out and then he says, what kind of phone? They said, okay, what kind of phone do you have? I said, I have an iPhone 13. Like, okay, you're going to sell that to this guy walking in. And so the guy walks in, and what I screwed up was I asked close-ended questions. For those that don't know, it's like you're asking yes or no questions rather than starting with who, what, when, where, why. So if I had said, "Oh, I see you're in here checking out phones," like, yeah, just checking them out. I was like, "Is there anything I can help you with?" No, no, I'm good. Um, but if I had said, "What features are most important to you in a phone, or what challenges you're currently dealing with your phone?" The correct answer to that training exercise was pretty much, he loves taking pictures in like nature, loves taking video, but his battery sucks. And so like he knew that coming into that training exercise that was his issue. And this what they wanted to see was, can I dig up that information? So I must have asked him 20, 30 questions or something. And he just kept giving me yes and no short answers. And I was really bad at asking those open-ended questions, which that impacts me on a day-to-day basis. Is I can quickly identify, did I just ask an open-ended or a closed-ended one? I know one of the questions I was asking for a couple weeks was, I would say the 3 main things that our QuickBase is good for, and then I would say, which one of those resonates with you the most? To which they could say, none of them, or maybe one of them. But now I say, or no, sorry, that's what I'm asking now versus before I
Yes.
was saying, does any of that resonate with you?
Yes.
To which they could just say yes or no. So now I'm saying, which of those resonates with you the most? So it's kind of rare that people will say none of them, because that doesn't technically answer my question.
Yeah.
And usually if they try to avoid that, they'll end up like just saying like something totally different and like trying to change the subject. So learning open-ended questions, practicing them maybe even for an hour before your interview would probably really impress them. I don't know if this part helped, but I researched a little bit of the people that were interviewing me, and I found my VP of sales had put up probably like 5, 10 LinkedIn articles 2 years ago. And so I looked them up, I pulled up a couple of stats, and I had them on an index card next to me so that I could reference them in my interview. I don't know if that impressed them. I should ask and get back to you on that one. But I think seeing that I had done some kind of homework for it, I think helped my case probably a little.
Yeah, I agree. Doing homework on the individual to make a personal connection, now, albeit not forced or over the top, but that helps. It makes it warm, it shows effort. And I think it's important to do that with say, a discovery call with a prospect, a little bit about them. Maybe they post that they like stoicism or something, or you see they went to your university. That helps. And of course, researching the company, but love that preparation. And thanks for walking us through what the interviews look like. What you went through reminds me of that classic "Sell Me This Pen," where you want to ask questions to understand the true need and what the pains are, and then align to that. And hey, maybe they're not really in the market for a pen and they don't have a true need, and you can go to the person who is. But so it's funny. I have my weekly team sales meeting in 3 minutes, so I wanted to wrap up with 2 more questions. And Zach, thanks so much for the time. This has been a really valuable conversation. So, okay. And I see you're muted, by the way. Okay. So what resources do you leverage now that you're in the role to continue to sharpen your saw? Are there any podcasts, or have you read any books, or are you just mostly just learning through doing and mentors?
Mostly through doing and mentors. We do have Gong, which records our calls and we can listen to them afterwards. We do have call coaching once or twice a week. And yeah, I would say mostly just through falling on my face a lot.
Yeah. Well, that is a good way to learn. Really helpful insight. So the final question is, where do you see yourself taking this tech sales journey? Do you naturally want to become an account executive? Could you see yourself becoming a VP of sales? Or obviously you're building out your coaching business as well, but where do you long-term see yourself going with this?
I think probably becoming an account executive in a closing role seems pretty important skill. Secondly, I think I would like to be a manager, but I think just to practice leadership skills in a high or mid stakes environment.
Yep.
And then I think by then I'll probably want to take that skill over to my own thing. I don't think I want to work for someone. I don't want to work my way up the ladder, but I want the skills of the first couple rungs of the ladder.
Yeah. Well, cheers to that journey and success. Thank you for generously sharing with us today. And, I want to make sure the audience can get connected with you in the case that, they have the courage to call you up, or LinkedIn you, right? And put those skills to practice and find a mentor. Because, Zach has been a great friend and mentor to me in many ways. So how can people get in contact with you? What's the best way?
I'm assuming they can see my name right there, ZACHWATSON. If you search me on LinkedIn, it's an easy way to get a hold of me. If you want to see me on TikTok talking about fatherhood, Zach Think Share. If they want to see me do goofy rap videos, they can find me on YouTube. Also, if they search Zach and Think Share, and if they want to hear my TEDx talk about goals, if you search my name in TEDx, you should be able to find it.
I really enjoyed that TEDx talk. So, Zach, cheers to a productive day-to-day, setting some meetings, pushing through rejection. And, I look forward to having you again on the channel at some point soon. To the audience out there, I hope you enjoyed this video and really got to digest all the nuggets. All the best to you guys. And of course, make sure to subscribe to the channel for weekly sales and personal growth hacks that you can chew on like snacks. Happy selling and happy living.
Hey, Chris.